top of Everest. This is dedicated to all the single moms, little boys growing up with no dads.
Come and row the Atlantic, they said. Off to the Caribbean we are, aren't we?
When I reached Everest summit, I've never felt like that before. I've lost like 15 kilos or something since last year. You know what I mean? Like, people die. That's the reality. It's the risk you take. And the motorbike pulls up beside, between me and the car beside us, opens up the door and just shoots the guy right in front of me.
All right, so I am joined by Johnny Ward. Johnny is the first Irishman to have visited all 197 countries in the world, and now he is one step away from becoming the first person in the history of the world to have visited every country and all 7 of the summits and the North and South Pole. So talk to us about the most recent challenge that you're currently recovering from, Everest. I mean, this is phenomenal.
It was tough, Matt, to be honest. I mean, that might sound silly. Of course it was tough, but it was tough. Like, I'm looking at myself here on the camera, like, for the video. My head, I look like a lollipop. I've lost like 15 kilos or something since last year. The climb itself, I lost nearly 10 kilos. It's 7 weeks, like, call it 50 days. And you fly to Kathmandu, and the first kind of 10 days is the Everest Base Camp trek, which I think a lot of people have heard of these days. The people who are doing the base camp trek then go home, and we obviously continue on, and we go and climb kind of in week 3, you climb this other mountain called the Buche, which is like 6,100 meters, which is quite high actually. And then you come down, and then you settle into base camp. The lead guide said, "Oh, there's been a weather window, we got to go tonight." And you hike through the night. The first night, when you go back through that Khumbu icefall, you go through the night. And that's where you have those ladders, those famous ladders that people have seen in books and documentaries and everything. And the crevasse had really opened really wide. The reason you go at night is because it's colder. It's bloody freezing, actually. So the glacier stays as solid as it can stay. You know, glaciers constantly move, only millimeters, but sometimes those millimeters can, like, it's like an earthquake and it cracks open like that. So 3 Sherpa had died, actually, just like 2 weeks previously. And there are times you're thinking, like, when you're fearful for your life, like, is this worth it? I walked across this ladder one time, and that's exactly where those guys died, those 3 died. So honest to God, it would sometimes take you like 5, 6, 7 minutes to recover before you can take the next step.
You know, you kind of said about speaking about your mum and dedicating it to just other single mums and kids, you know.
Top of Everest. This is dedicated to all the single moms, little boys growing up with no dads. To the moms, just support the kids, and to the kids, just remember, anything's possible.
Your mum's in her 70s. She has Parkinson's, but you recently, you know, climbed Mount Fuji and walked the Serengeti Marathon with her. Like, how?
Yeah, so, like, she had a tough time. My dad was in prison and blah blah blah, and he was a bad guy. And anyway, we moved up to the north of Ireland, and well, you know, Liverpool's the capital of Ireland pretty much, so you know what it's like. It's a similar culture. And when you see people doing all these kind of expeditions, especially expeditions, like the term expeditions, like a posh English London royal family, Royal Geographic Society, public school, do you know what I mean? That's the kind of association I grew up with things like Everest and North Pole, South Pole and all that. And I'm sure you guys feel the same. And you just don't get people like me and my upbringing doing it. You literally just don't. So I knew that, and I was proud to do it anyway. Since I started making money from my blog, my mum got, it was awful timing. She was so dedicated to me breaking out of the cycle of poverty, and she really helped me do that. And then as soon as I could make money from it, then I started taking her around the world, like, as a thank you for her supporting me for all those years. And then she got diagnosed with Parkinson's, and that was like 12 years ago. So then, as well as taking her on all these trips, I started doing these fundraising trips to raise money for Parkinson's. So we raised 20 grand. We climbed Mount Fuji for her 70th birthday, and then for her 72nd, we did the Serengeti Marathon, like you say. And now later this year, we're doing a 100K cycle in Jordan in the desert. So yeah, so I completely dedicated it, not just to her, but to all single mothers.
I mean, you must have some crazy stories, but you saw someone get shot twice.
That was awful, mate. Like Angola used to be the hardest visa in the world to get. It's a country in West Africa, and it's really poor, but they've got as much oil as Saudi, or just slightly less than Saudi, so it shouldn't be poor. It's wildly corrupt. And we're driving from the airport to his compound, and I was like, saying to him, is it dangerous? I heard some bad things. He's like, no, it's okay, it's okay. And we get stuck in this traffic. And the motorbike pulls up between me and the car beside us, and opens up the door and just shoots the guy right in front of me. Shot him in his stomach and his leg. So I'm pretty sure he'll have survived. And then he grabbed a bag out of the car and sped off. So I guess it was a pre-planned hit. But I just landed. Like, I'd been in the country about 12 minutes.
I read that you felt that your guide felt sorry for you because you have to buy your own house and car, and whereas in wonderful North Korea, that's provided for them.
Yeah, really interesting, mate. First of all, I would say North Korea, awful government, of course, but life there, like as you're walking around Pyongyang, is a lot more normal than the Western media would suggest to us. People are watching the Liverpool game on TV. People are drinking beers. There's you know what I mean? They're out on dates. They're going for coffees. There was this lovely Korean lady who'd never left North Korea, perfect English accent, and she was genuinely felt sorry for me for living in another country that wasn't North Korea. Like, she couldn't understand the concept of me having to buy my own house, me having to buy my own clothes. She literally couldn't understand that. But then also didn't understand the concept that I could travel internationally with the money that I've earned. You know what I mean? Where there would be like a billboard in bloody Oxford Street in London or whatever, they still have those massive billboards, and then the billboard's just like a Korean guy like stabbing an American guy, and it says like "Death to America."
You mentioned that in North Korea they're even watching the Liverpool game. You know, so tell me some of the stories maybe involving. Where's the strangest place you've watched a Liverpool game or tried to watch Liverpool?
I don't miss any game, right? So I've maybe missed 2 games in like 10 years. So, and obviously I spent 11 years going to every country. So I've watched Liverpool and everywhere. So I live in Thailand, and Liverpool is probably the #1 club, I'd say, in Thailand. Watching Liverpool, even through sub-Saharan Africa or even the Pacific Islands and bloody Tuvalu and Federated States and Micronesia and all this, never a problem to watch it, never. I was in Svalbard, which is this island that you use to get to the North Pole. This military plane takes you to the North Pole. I ended up not only finding a bar, I was in this is the most northern settlement in the world. I was at a Liverpool supporters club watching the Liverpool game in this pub in Svalbard.
What about like the people whenever you tell them you're from or you're a Liverpool supporter? Yeah. You instantly get that, like, you know. It's
such a equalizer, isn't it? It's really a warm energy. And even if people don't speak any language, because Liverpool are such a famous club, they just start screaming the players' names. If they're old, they'll talk about Kenny Dalglish and Kevin Keegan, and if they're young, they'll talk about Torres and Suarez. You know what I mean? So it's a massive equalizer, and it's been a huge help for me when I was doing my every country thing, more than the expedition stuff. When I was doing the every country thing alone in these scary countries, being a Liverpool fan was massively helpful. And I often talk to my American friends that I live in Thailand, because every time we're out in the pubs drinking in Thailand or whatever, and then we end up meeting some Thai people, and we're talking about instantly talking about football if it's guys, right? And my American friends are always very jealous because they see me doing this in every time in different countries. They're always seeing me talk about football to people, and they're like, they're missing out because apart from the US, it connects everyone with football.
Just to wrap it up, Johnny, you've got hopefully the final part of the Ultimate Challenge coming up later this year.
Yeah.
You're a man who, you mentioned it earlier, likes to then be on the next one. What next for Johnny Ward? What's 2024 got in store?
We're fundraising at the moment for that 100-kilometer cycle in Jordan for the Cure Parkinson's Trust. It's a UK charity that's trying to find a cure for Parkinson's. So we've got we just launched a Just Giving page for that. So if there's anywhere you can put links in, that'll be very helpful.